The start of the civil rights movement begins with Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, which overturned the Plessy versus Ferguson case of 1896, which ruled in favor of separate but equal. Next came the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. It was sparked when an African-American woman, Rosa Parks, is arrested December 1st for refusing to give up her seat to a white person. She was actually sitting in the colored section of the bus. The buses would desegregate later in 1956 after facing bankruptcy. In 1960, the sit-in protest movements began in February at Woolworth's Lunch in Greensboro, North Carolina, and spread across the nation. Sit-ins were an efficient and nonviolent way to protest. African Americans and other civil rights activists would fill up diners and sit there until they were served. If they were not served, they would stay there until closing, and the businesses would lose money. In 1961, another form of nonviolent protest emerged. Freedom rides began in Washington, D.C. Groups of blacks and white people would ride buses through the South to challenge segregation. SNCC emerged as a very successful nonviolent protest group. SNCC stands for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. In 1963, police arrest King and other ministers for demonstrating in Birmingham, Alabama. They then turned fire hoses and police dogs on the marchers. Medgar Evers, NAACP leader, is murdered June 12th as he enters his home in Jackson, Mississippi. On August 28, 1963, from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, 250,000 people attend the March on Washington, D.C., urging support for pending civil rights legislation. The event was highlighted by Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. Later, 4 girls were killed September 15th in a bombing on the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. Here, President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was a landmark piece of legislation in the United States that extended voting rights and outlawed racial segregation in schools, at the workplace, by facilities that served the general public. And finally, on August 6th, President Johnson signs the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The act, which MLK sought, authorized federal examiners to register qualified voters and suspend devices such as literacy tests that aim to prevent African Americans from voting.
Yes, and how many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist